Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, and my friends, in today's video I want to go over Solomon Grundy, who is legitimately just one of the coolest and most well-designed characters in fighting games ever. If you've ever talked to anyone from the NRS community, Mortal Kombat and Justice, you will often hear people talk very favorably about Solomon Grundy, because he was just a damn cool character for a lot of reasons. And we'll go into those reasons in this video. So Grundy, he's a grappler, and Grundy was a very inventive grappler. So Injustice 1 is his first appearance, and I guess you could say in a lot of ways Injustice 1 was like NetherRealm Studios kind of stab at a Street Fighter style game. Obviously it's not very much exactly like Street Fighter, but it's a lot closer than Mortal Kombat is. And Grundy was their first attempt, along with Bane, at a more traditional grappler character, which doesn't really exist in Mortal Kombat. And it's definitely very different than, say, like a Zangief or something, but it's very flavorful. Now, Grundy, like many grapplers, maybe not the best character. Now, I don't think he was bad necessarily, but in a game with like characters like Martian Manhunter and like Batgirl, he definitely wasn't on their level. So that said here, let's go into why I think Grundy was such a fascinating character, and let's start the show with the showstopper, because we gotta start here, and that's his trait. So his trait, well, it's a grab. Everyone in this game, if you're not familiar with Injustice, is a 4-button game. 1 is like light, 2 is medium, 3 is like heavy, and everyone has a trait button, and it's just something evocative of the character. Someone like Superman would power up, someone like Hawkgirl would fly, and for Grundy, it's a grab. And it's one of his many grabs. Now, where this is different than every other kind of grab here, because, you know, he's definitely got some specials, and we'll go over some of those later as well, is it's a chain system. So you have the base grab on its own, and then there's 3 separate chains, and all 3 of these chains have, well, very different outcomes, as they actually change Grundy's abilities over the course of the match. One chain lets him do more damage, one chain lets them take less damage, and one makes them take less chip damage. And all of these buffs, by the way, are permanent until you do the next one. So if you get the damage buff, and then you wait 60 seconds, you still have the damage buff. And it's not one of those deals where you have the buff for like 4, 5, 6 seconds like a lot of other fighting games. These buffs are permanent. So now let's talk about the chains. So all the chains start off the base grab. So he will always start with this animation first, and from there you enter different inputs to get the different chains. So now let's do the power chain. So this is basically like a 3-part series here, and in the end he does a reverse tombstone pile driver and does 25% all in all. And of all these throws, this leaves you the closest to Grundy. So if you want to pressure directly after the fact, this one will leave you the closest. Now, you can see here, let's take a couple examples here. Our stand 1 does 3.6 damage. Our down 2, which is sort of like an uppercut, does 6%. Now, without the buff here, 3%, 5%. So you can see here, my damage is increased across the board. So here, let me show you a very basic combo without the damage buff, and then show you the same combo with the damage buff. So we'll do this here. So quick basic juggle, basic knockback, right? So 27% without the damage buff. Now with the damage buff, so the exact same combo, but now 32%. So this combo, or rather this grab here, the damage buff grab, of all the grabs it does the least amount of damage, but it gives you more damage in your combos. And once again, these buffs are permanent until you do the next command grab chain, right? So if you get this very early in a match, then it might be to your benefit to do this just to get more damage on your set play and all that stuff later on. Or specifically, this can be your comeback, right? If you're almost dead, and like this game is not a round-based game, by the way, if you're unaware. It's basically you have 2 life bars. So if the enemy kills you and they have full life bar, you gotta beat them twice, basically back to back. You do not get a reset in a round, right? So if you're really down on your luck, like this is basically the comeback factor. Okay, I'm almost done for. Like, just give me something here, so I might as well get the damage buff and see if I can make the comeback happen. So that's 1. Next is the health chain. So once again, starts with base grab. And the health chain, if you've ever watched this game, you ever seen Grundy, this is probably the one you see the most, because simply put, of the 3 options, this one does the most damage by itself. So for a lot of people, you know, more damage equal more better. And honestly, I can't even necessarily fault that logic. But we have that. And now what does it do? Well, it makes you take less damage. So here we are with a basic combo from Joker. And this combo will do 12%. So simple enough, right? Now let's do our grab, get our damage in, and see how much this would do to us after that. All right, so we're getting in our big dunks here. And now, once again, before, that combo did 12%. Now, what is it going to do? Oh, it does 10%. Obviously not like a major difference, but saving a few percents in combos, like, that's more life, right? So this basically, every time you land this grab, on top of doing the most damage of all three grabs, it gives Grundy just the most potential to survive the game, basically, as he'll take a couple more straight hits to kill to go down. And our final trait chain here is the defense one. So this also doesn't do as much damage, although it has like a cool little cinematic of trying to drown you in like the swamp water, right? But it does 21%, right? So a far cry from the health chain, which does over 30%. And this one makes it that you take less chip damage. Now, I know it seems unappealing. You know, you don't do more damage, like the reverse tombstone pile driver. You don't do more damage with the move itself, with the other one. But taking less chip in this game, of all games, one of the most infamous games for zoning ever, is a big deal. A lot of characters like Sinestro, Deathstroke, Zod, Superman, they could make your life a living hell, especially someone with like Grundy's moveset, and you're gonna have to block a lot. And this basically negates all the chip. Well, not all, but, well, here, let me show you. So here we are normally, and I'm just gonna block everything, right? And as you can see here, Joker just keeps shooting, and, well, it's definitely taking a toll on me, right? And this is Joker. This is not even one of the more advanced zoning characters. Other zoners, they'll put you in a world of hurt. But now, so we're gonna do our trait grab here. And so we slam him around a little bit. And we don't do as much damage, sure, but now when he starts attacking us with that gunshot, well, I think it kind of speaks for itself here, right? So we are still taking a little bit of damage, and by a little bit, I mean very little, right? So compared to before, we've already taken like 25% damage at this point. We can just kind of wait this stuff out. It is just not as big of a deal. So you can see here, each shot does 2% damage on block. And with the trade up, it's only 0.2%. So significant for sure, absolutely. So you can just be patient, walk and block and all that kind of fun stuff. Just a lot more when you know you have this trade up. And that's why this is so important for Grundy, right? It's 3 different ways to play, basically. As soon as you land the grab, you can then choose to do, for the rest of the match, more damage, take less damage, or take less chip damage. And every matchup is a bit different. Some are more valuable than others. And sometimes you got to think about the grab itself. Do I want to be closer for more pressure, or do I just want to take the damage? And it's all off this one basic grab right here. And of course, this game being this game, you can enhance the grab too as well, and get a bit more damage, that kind of stuff. Enhancing it, by the way, also makes it armored, and you can start the party from there. And on top of all these fun things, you don't have to use it just as a base grab. Like, you can very easily combo into it as well. Like, it's going to be, not all, but most of his combos will end in this. So, it's just the world to him. And yes, he has other grabs as well. So what other fun things does Grundy have here? So I talked about the trait a lot, just to go over some of the things he could do. He has the big cleaver attack, that's an overhead. And you can also enhance it to bounce the enemy. That's really cool. He's got a reptile fart cloud. That just deals unblockable damage. And if you enhance it here, it just deals more unblockable damage. And by the way, if you have the fart cloud up here while you're doing your grab chains, it deals damage the whole way through. So now that did 44% damage. It's significant if you can get the fart cloud up and then grab someone after the fact. You have dead air, which is like a hit grab, like it's the kind of grab you can combo into. If you enhance it, it tosses them up. It's an easy juggle. If not, then it just chucks them away and you can follow after the fact. He also has an anti-air grab, which you can combo from if you purposely launch them, or you can just sneak in and just snatch them out of the air. Either way works. He has Walking Corpse, which is a running grab, and man, oh man, this move is really good. In fact, I'm basically going to dedicate a whole section to it later, but just on its own, just so you know, it is a grab, right? And you can also enhance it and then just kind of chuck people for more damage. And FYI is definitely very armored, so if you want to just kind of bully your way in, you absolutely can do that. And here's one of the more interesting things about him. This is definitely a very NRS-influenced move. He has Swamp Hands. So they tried to make like a classic style of grappler, but they also gave him a full screen low. Like this tracks. So wherever you are, you know, it's going to find him, right? So I don't necessarily recommend challenging the better zoners with this move, but it gives you presence at full screen that normally a grappler style character would not have. And here's the real beauty. So like many other moves, it's enhanceable. And if it's enhanced, well, it becomes a capture state move. Think like Sub-Zero Freeze or Scorpion Spear. They cannot move while this is going. And if you catch them, you know, if they're shooting fireballs or whatever, and you catch them in the middle of it, you can dash forward, and then it's combo time. So, and makes people respect Grundy at full screen when normally, given the style of character he is, you wouldn't, right? Most games, for the most part, if, you know, the big grappler dude's full screen, you don't have to give him an ounce of respect. Grundy, you'd have to give him a little respect at least. Another really cool thing about Grundy is the blender. So Grundy in and of himself, like, he already has mixed potential because, you know, he obviously has a grab. He has forward one, which is a low, and back one, which is an overhead. And back one's the particularly important one here. Because back one, more importantly than being an overhead, although that's important too, is if you just let it rock, it leaves the enemy in a fair amount of hit stun. Now, nothing's guaranteed off it, but it lets you set up the next thing. So say I hit you with a small combo, like, oh, I got you, right? Hit confirm, I'll jump to bonk. So it's 28, which is respectable. It's not like a lot, but it's 28. But I end in the bonk, his overhead back one, right? And now you're basically jailed. I'm going to do one of several things to you next, and you got no opportunity other than to just guess. You are now present with these two options. After the bonk, I'm either going to go low, and there is nothing you can do to stop this low other than just block. Like, you are jailed, you're stuck in the animation, so you're allowed to block, yes, that's good, but you have to block. So after the bonk, I can go for my low. And from the low, like, I can go into full combo, right? Or after the bonk, I can go for my trait grab. And we've already went over all the benefits of the trait grab, right? So it's scary stuff. So now in this basic combo scenario here, so I already did my 28%, and then from that point, I can follow up with the grab. And the grab, like, let's just use the damage grab. So, okay, I'll get 31%. So effectively, you know, 59% all in all, off like a basic stand one. Like, that's pretty all right. Or after the bonk, I can go low, and then, well, world's my oyster, basically. As you can see here, I'm going to get a lot more than just the base grab by itself, right? Now I get 40% instead of just a little over 30. And I don't remember my optimal combos. I'm sure you can do a lot better than that, right? So, yeah, it's scary. So every time I combo you and I end the combo in the bonk, once again, I can go low or I can go grab. To get out of the low option, simply block. And if you're going for the grab, you can simply backdash. So there is always a way out if you know what's coming. Nothing is guaranteed, but you do have to guess. So if you just block, you will beat the low, but you will get grabbed. And if you attempt to backdash, you will beat the grab, but you will get stuffed by the low and then get comboed out. So it's a strict 50-50 basically. And now, that said, you can actually add more layers because I don't gotta go low. I can just bonk again. Like from the bonk, like, hey, didn't you just see this, right? I can reset, I can get a 25% damage if you guessed wrong and put you back into that same blender, right? Now, the bonk is not as guaranteed because if you just down back, you will stop the low, but you will get hit by the overhead. But if you backdash, for the most part, you'll usually get out of the range of the overhead and also escape the grab. So a little bit more caveat, but it just adds more layer of mix. Like, what I'm trying to tell you is basically every time Grundy gets you, even off like the most basic hits, like, it is potentially a game over situation. Like, if you guess wrong, he's gonna tear you in half for guessing wrong. Like, as you can see there, it's about like what, 85% damage, because I got you the one time off a basic light, like just stand one, that's nothing. And then you guessed wrong, and then you guessed wrong, and then here we are. So Grundy, on top of having, you know, some of the stuff we've already went over, Grundy, after he hits you the one time, you're in the blender. You are a couple guesses away from death. Okay, now let's talk one thing about Grundy, which is definitely out of the usual grappler mold. And one of the things that just makes him so fascinating as a character, and that's his movement. Normally, you talk about any grappler in any fighting game, movement's not on the menu, right? But for Grundy, you probably seen me do it quite a few times already in the video, but the dash, his base dash is effing ridiculous. Like, I'm just hitting forward, like nothing else. Like, any other game, if you could move like this, like you'd say it's like a wave dash or I'm doing some special technique. No, man. This is just Grundy's base movement. So, if you let him, he can get it all the way in seconds. Like, this is not a big deal. And that's just that one part of it, right? So we talked about Walking Corpse earlier. This is his run grab. And, well, it's a grab. Does damage. Also armored. Really good. But you can also do something very special with it. And that is that you can cancel the movement. You don't have to commit to the grab part of the move. Now, on a lot of levels, there's some interesting stuff. Because bare minimum, it's armored. It charges forward. So a lot of people just want to jump. And you can just do that and like air grab them when they try to jump. So there's some funniness right there, right? But let me show you this. So we're in a situation now where a zoner style character is doing their thing, right? And, you know, walk and block is always viable for sure. But say we're not exactly feeling it. Grundy can basically armored advance through the stage. He can do his Walking Corpse, cancel it, and then just work his way in. Now, once again, it's Joker, so it's not the ultimate example of zoning here, but it's just something he can do. So if I happen to be feeling so inclined, on top of my very excellent dash, I can also just kind of armored advance through the stage and just tank all the stuff coming my way. So it's already good for the basic stuff, but there's another massive layer to this. So one thing you might have heard about Injustice over the years if you never played the game is interactables. You can mess around with the stage and do stuff. And let me introduce you to my friend Hype Pig. And Hype Pig, well, if you ever played Injustice, you know we've fought some wars with Hype Pig over the years. Hype Pig is a big unblockable mess. If you are anywhere in the part of the stage here, there's basically no avoiding Hype Pig. Once again, interactables in this game, unlike say Injustice 2, are unblockable. You have no possible way to defend yourself other than to simply not be in the way. And there's so many combos that give like guaranteed hits from the interactions, their interactables rather, because I'll knock you down, I'll force you to wake up in a certain position, and then you have to wake up into the interactable, and there's no possible way to avoid the damage. And for a character like Grundy, or say a character like Bane as well, similar kind of thing in this game, you know, bigger than average body, a lot more susceptible to being hit by interactables, and once again, you can't block. But Grundy, we talked about Walking Corpse and all the cancels and all that kind of stuff, advancing with armor, he can play around with this in a way other characters cannot. So our pal Joker here, he's in control of Hype Pig. And, you know, I want to get in, it's hard, I'll dash in, I can't do it, I'll try to jump in, can't do it because I'm too freaking big, right? There's just no way around it, except, well, I can use my armor. Now, granted, to be sure, I will still take damage, but I won't get blown away. You can sacrifice some of your health to just basically guarantee that you'll get in against an interactable. And in this game, that is an absolutely huge deal. It's really something, you know, a lot of other characters aren't afforded, right? It just gives me a layer of options that a lot of characters don't have. And that's a big deal because interactables, a lot of stages, they're like Professor X's danger room. There's a lot of dangerous toys all over the place, right? So it just helps you circumnavigate a lot of this BS, honestly. And in situations where you know stuff's coming, being able to do this kind of stuff, well, it can be the difference between winning or losing the game. Simple as that, for sure. And that's kind of Grundy in a nutshell. Once again, I think this character is incredibly interesting, especially because Injustice 1 in a lot of ways was kind of like a test bed for doing a different style of game for NetherRealm Studios. Grundy, I feel, is like one of the characters they really hit out of the park. Another one was Hawkgirl as well, but, well, this is a Grundy video. But just a lot of things like, hey, big grabby dude. But big grabby dude who can move really friggin' fast, happens to have full screen presence, customizable game plan. Like, okay, based on what grabs I'm doing will define how I play for the rest of the match. So if I do this grab all of a sudden against the zoner, I can start playing way more lame because I'm going to take almost next to nothing for chip damage, right? This Grundy, it was a home run of design. And once again, too, NetherRealm players as a whole bemoan the lack of Grundy. He was definitely one of the most asked for people in Injustice 2, which we did not get. Grundy only exists in Injustice 1. And he's always held as kind of a gold standard of how this kind of character should be done in NRS games. Even Mortal Kombat. There's been talks of like, oh man, I wish this character was more like Grundy or this, that, and the other, right? Grundy is just cool. And why not just, while we're here, I'll show you one more dirty Grundy trick, and that's his tick grabs. Grundy's down 2 is one of his best buttons. It's like basically like a Mortal Kombat style uppercut. And when you know it, if you're close enough, it's a natural combo into his grab. That's great. And when you know it, even if the enemy happens to be blocking, and they will still get grabbed because it's a natural tick throw on top of a natural combo, because why not, right? So there's no fail state, basically. If you hit, you get the grab. If they block, you get the grab. Now, if they block, they do have a very small window to avoid this. They have to recognize it for what it is immediately. But yeah, that's really good. Like, he can tick grab off a lot of things as well. It's not just that. But that's a very prominent example, to say the least. So that is Solomon Grundy. Just a plain, cool character, and also one of my favorite characters of all time. On Twitter, and you should check out my Twitter if you don't already, I'm Rufomonger on Twitter, I made a tweet recently just saying, here's some of the most fun characters I've ever played in the modern era of fighting games like Street Fighter 4 and up, and Grundy was one of my examples. And a lot of people said, hey, why not make it a video? So here it is, a video on Grundy, and I hope you enjoyed. That all said, we're at the end of the video now, so thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games.